Hey guys, welcome back to Just Being a Mom podcast, and we are back as promised with Elayne of Mima's house. Follow, okay? And we are back, and she is here to actually tell her birth story with Elijah, her first son. I know our sons have the same name.
I know, so cool. That's how we bonded.
I know, yeah. You're like, I have an Elijah too.
Yep.
So I know last week I said she was going to tell Nasai's birth story, but she's actually going to talk about Elijah's birth story. And funny story is she was supposed to come on a year ago to tell this birth story. And I tried to get her on like after the baby came, and like it was just like such a bad time. And now here, and she is telling it. So we are glad that she's back. But first, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. And let's get started with this birth story of Elijah. I'm so excited. So what were your like expectations? Going into like your first time having a baby? What did you think? What did you want to happen?
Okay. So first time, Elijah was born in 2018. So expectation wise, I wanted to do natural. I wanted to have it in the hospital. I didn't want to have a home birth because my anxiety is too bad. And I was just like, if something happens, I need to be right there in the hospital so they can do a C-section or whatever. So I wanted to have, birth in the hospital. Elijah he wanted to stay in my stomach. Like he did not want to come out. So he ended up being a week late. And on the 7th day, I chose to get induced. So I did not go into birth naturally. I got the Pitocin. And my whole labor time was 37 hours. Like it was long. It was long, but surprisingly, it did not feel that long. Like while I was in there until afterwards, they were like, your total labor was 37 hours and you were pushing for 4 hours. I remember like when I was in the hospital that like while I was pushing, I just remember thinking like, I'm not getting a C-section. Like I did not want a C-section at all because I could feel him coming, but like I just was like, I know with the Pitocin it takes longer. Sometimes the baby you can't feel yourself pushing and things like that. So I just knew I didn't want a C-section.
Start from so the day you went into labor, what happened?
So that day, like I said, I went in. So I went in 24 hours ahead. I got induced. And then when I actually went into labor, the next day, because I was pushing, like I was just in the hospital, but I didn't feel anything. I was bouncing on the ball and all of that. So when he finally came, he came smoothly. Like I didn't have any like scares or anything like that, or like the umbilical cord or anything like that. He came smoothly. But my thing was I'm like jumping all over the place. Sorry, y'all. I knew I was going to jump all over the place. So before, like while I was pregnant, I had the best pregnancy. Like first round, I wasn't sick, no nausea, nothing. Like besides the weight gain, I wouldn't even know I was pregnant like at all. I had nothing. So I expected the whole, birthing process, hospital, take baby home, everything to go smoothly. After Elijah was born, we went to our room, and that day was smooth. But then the next morning they were like, oh, we have to take your son to go get blood work because he came out with a temperature. Mind you, they didn't tell us that when we first had him. So this is the next day where we're thinking everything's good after he had his first bath, all of that. So they took him with dad because after I gave birth, my whole lower body was swollen and I couldn't get up. So dad went with him to get blood work. And when his blood work came back, they said, oh, he might have bacteria in his blood. So we're going to have to retest it, but he's going to have to go to the NICU. So I started freaking out because having, my first baby, I never even looked up information or anything about the NICU. Like I was so like, I didn't even know, like I thought that meant like my baby was a preemie when they go to, that's the only thing I knew about the NICU. So they were like, he's going to have to go there so that he can get antibiotics. And so I was a mess. I was super emotional. I had anxiety already. And I was just like, I told my mom, like, don't tell anybody I had the baby yet. Like, don't tell them, because I was freaking out. So he ended up going to the NICU. And the way I gave birth that Henry male. And so the way it was set up, they just remodeled and everything. But the way the woman in it, and then the NICU was like down the hall a little bit. I was not supposed to get up because remember I told you my legs were swollen, but my baby was in the NICU. So literally for those 5 days, I kept walking back and forth, making my legs worse to go to the baby, staying in there because I was like, I can't. The first 2 days he was in there, I did not want to leave. I was like having so much anxiety because I also, wanted to breastfeed right away, but he was in the NICU. And because he was given antibiotics, they were like, oh, you can't, we don't know how much breast milk you're getting. When I was pumping, there was like less than an ounce. And I was like, can you give it to him in a spoon? Like I had a really bad NICU nurse experience. And she's like, no, like what you want me to do? Like a spoon, put it on my finger and give it to him. And
do you a hairy man? That's how they do you a hairy man.
That NICU nurse, like before, like my experiences with the NICU, they were funky. Like everybody else was good, but I was so emotional. Like I didn't even feel like standing up for myself at that point because I'm a new mom. I'm very emotional. And when that nurse left, like I just started bawling, crying. And my husband was like, what's wrong? I was like, she said, I can't give him this breast milk. Like, and I pumped so hard and it was less than an ounce, but I was like, I want my baby to have it. And she was just like, you need to give him the formula. So I ended up giving him the formula. But I still was pumping. I still, getting my milk up. So they agreed to give him some of it too. But I had to give him a bunch of formula, which after, being a new mom, I didn't do all my research with like I should have. Y'all do your research. He didn't need that much milk that they were telling me to give him. And the thing is, when I first tried to give him the formula, like he wouldn't take it. So they ended up putting a tube in his nose. And then me and my husband joke all the time because literally right after they put the tube in, he started drinking like the milk from the bottle and not the tube. Because he was like, I don't want to drink the milk through there, I guess. But he still ended up getting a tube in his nose. So that was like really traumatizing because like all of this, I never thought like I would see my baby in an incubator. I didn't think I would see him with the tube in his mouth, having to hold him and like try to practice breastfeeding with all these cords and stuff around him was like very traumatic. So I think like on the third or fourth day, my husband was like, you need to go home. Like, and the nurse was like, you need to eat, you need to like leave this room. And so I remember going back to my room in the hospital and seeing like breakfast, lunch, and dinner trays like packed up because I wasn't eating and I didn't go. And I just like, I didn't eat anything. I just sat there and cried. And then like, I just was like so nervous and everybody kept telling me like, he's going to be fine. Like all the nurses were like, this is the healthiest baby we've ever seen in the NICU, the biggest baby, like he's going to be all right. But a new mom, you don't know that, like, you don't think about that stuff. And so like I said, he was in there for 5 days and then we ended up finally being able to take him home. His blood work came back normal. I don't know if the antibiotics did it or what, but when they finally came back, everything was good and they gave him the release to be healthy and go home.
That's insane. Oh my God. Well, he's totally fine now.
Yeah.
So how long total were you guys at the hospital?
So we were in the hospital for 5 days. Yeah, he was in the NICU for 5 days.
That's crazy.
And it's so crazy too, because like when you're in the NICU, like parents that are coming and going, like you all know the same struggles. Like if any of you that are watching this, like you know about the 2 minutes you got to wash your hands before you go into your baby's room. And so sometimes like your baby, you can hear your baby crying and like mom's like, like your boobs start leaking and stuff. And I remember like crying, being so anxious, washing my hands for 2 minutes that you got to wash them, and hearing Elijah cry in the next room. And just like one time I went when he was getting his circumcision and dad was in there with him. And I was just like trying to hurry up, like trying to speed up time so I can get in there. But it was just so painful. And then you make connections. Like there was another mom in there that had like a baby, and her baby had been in there for like 2 months. Oh. And so like she was telling me like, it doesn't matter if your baby's in here for a day. Like NICU moms, like, you know, it's like a different feeling when you give birth. Like when you finally get to take your baby home, like they have a birth date and then like another like actual like we're going home together date.
That's amazing. I'm so glad he made it home.
Yes, girl. And I'm so glad it wasn't anything more serious, but
yeah, it's still scary. So scary nonetheless. So what about your recovery? Like, what was your recovery like? What was going on with your legs?
Right. So they said because I was in labor for so long that all the fluids and stuff they were giving me, once I finally pushed them out, it just like went to my legs. So yes, like I didn't know it was a thing either, but I was prepared this time because for my second, I was prepared because the first time I couldn't fit my shoes. Like my feet were swollen for like 2 weeks. So like those whole 5 days we were there walking back and forth, I think I made them worse. Yeah. And then I tried to put on my shoes when we finally could go. I couldn't fit my shoes. So I had to wear my husband's shoes to go home. And I have like a hilarious picture because I had like a dress on and then I had like his big old like red and black shoes that didn't match nothing. I just looked crazy. But this time I was like prepared just in case.
Yeah. And what about your recovery just as far as like getting the baby home and adjusting? Like how did you guys adjust back to like normal life?
So it was an adjustment, of course, like just being more watchful as a parent and listening out for him. I think I had like a lot of anxiety because, I already had anxiety, but then when you have a new baby, there's a bunch of worries that come in. So that actually leads to like Meemaw House because his first couple of months, I didn't like tell anyone I was dealing with like postpartum or anything. I didn't really know all what it was. But I was literally like crying all the time. I loved Elijah. I didn't have the feelings of like wanting to hurt him or anything like that, but I was really like nervous that, I didn't know what I was doing or something like that. And so I would be crying all the time, the littlest things. Like what actually set me off was like, I was trying to figure out something to eat. And I remember it so vividly. I was trying to figure out something to eat, to cook. I couldn't figure anything out. And I literally just like sat on my kitchen floor against the island and started crying. And like Nate, my husband came in with Elijah and was like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" And I was just like crying. I couldn't talk about it. And I told him like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I don't like get out of here because I don't want the baby to see me crying. I don't want you to like see me right here. And then that next day I like made up in my mind, like, you need to figure out something to do to get your shit together. Cause I don't want my son seeing me crying on the floor like this. Like, I don't want it. And so I started doing more self-care. I started working out, started doing activities with him. And then that's when I'm like, you have a business, like doing this, like start posting this stuff online, get your stuff together, start your website. So I started posting activities like in the end of 2018. And then I just like realized that making the actual, like making slime, making Play-Doh, like making the sensory bins, like really gave me peace. And it really like made me excited about something. So I started doing that. And then I was just like, I saw how much Elijah loved it and how passionate he was. And so I kept it going. I started, marketing, got into it. And so that's really like, I feel like working out and Meemaw House is really like what saved me from going deeper into like postpartum depression or something like that. Yeah.
That's amazing. Your business saved you. Amazing. I know you're going to help so many moms with this story. It's such an amazing, powerful story. And thank you for coming on here and sharing. I really appreciate it. Guys, please go follow Meemaw's House. I will link everything below and the link to our last episode where she talks more about her business, so you guys can keep in touch with her. But thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, thank you for being here, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. See you next time.